Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your number one source for the latest in WWE news and straightforward analysis. Are you ready to get this thing going?
Give me a hell yeah! I said give me a hell yeah!
Then let's get this show started right now.
All right, well, it's that time for the Mailbag show here on the WWE Podcast. One of my favorite shows of the week, I'm not going to lie. Because it gives me a chance to take a break, hear what my listeners are thinking about, what their questions are, what the rants are, and that's what this is about. So let's get to it. Let's not waste time. Let's get to the very first email that we have, as we do emails first and voicemails on the back end. And our very first one comes from Muller over at Patreon. You guys can also join him on Patreon and get a bunch of great benefits, including this priority placement in the mailbag. So that's one of the benefits here is the mailbag placement. So what does he say? He says, "Hi, Matt. Hope you're well. Glad to have finally joined Patreon. Big wrestling fan since I was very young. Glad I came across your wrestling podcast. Being in the medical field, 2020 and 2021 have been insane, and I've been overworked and too little sleep for way too long, but it's been great listening to you and all the other co-hosts on this podcast." Well, first of all, thank you very much, and thank you for, taking all the time that you have dedicated over the last year. That's been, I'm sure, if you're in the medical field, that's been exhausting. So try to get some sleep, brother, please. Much appreciated on our end as well. You say, "I want to hear your opinion about the WrestleMania triple threat with Reigns, Bryan, and Edge, where Edge and Bryan both applied the submission at the same time, and Reigns actually tapped out. Or this might be something the botch guy could add too. I also feel it was a very dull build to WrestleMania, but the show was better than expectations. I expect big comebacks to happen at SummerSlam. I feel Cesaro is the version of Kofi Kingston during Kofi Mania, the Kofi Mania era. He will have the toughest time getting to Reigns, but will overcome all the obstacles and will only get the opportunity at one of the big four pay-per-views, and hopefully it will be SummerSlam. SmackDown is the best and strongest show right now, with the most strong competitors like Rollins, Bryan, Edge, and even Big E and Nakamura. There are so many options for opponents for Reigns, but also many opponents for Cesaro to prove he is definitely worth it. Excited for Mia Yim to come over to SmackDown and drop the whole worthless, terrible retribution nonsense and become a great individual superstar. Nia Jax is so bloody annoying, and Lana's even worse. But I think Lana must stop trying to be a wrestler because she is terrible." And maybe Nia Jax and Shayna can finally split with the help of Lana, or Nia and Shayna have Lana as manager and go their single route. Love your show. Keep up the good work. A lot of stuff there. Tons of stuff here. So let's start at the beginning here. As far as the triple threat goes with the double tap out that Reigns, you said, did at WrestleMania. Am I mistaken? Did he actually tap? Did he actually do the double tap at WrestleMania? I don't know if he did. If he did, I missed it. And I would say that if he did the double tap, I actually thought that was going to be the finish. Once I saw it applied, I said, okay, here comes the finish, because it's going to be a double tap. They're not going to know who to declare a winner. And they're going to go into, well, Roman lost the belt, but we don't know who he lost it to. But that wasn't the finish. I would say that, the botch guy would, I'm sure, love to weigh on this. Really big shout out to the botch guy. Go follow him on YouTube. He's past 70K. Let's get him to 80K. So did I miss it? Seriously? Am I that bad of a wrestling podcast host that I missed the finish of the main event of WrestleMania? At least the false finish of it? Oh God, I hope not. I really do. Okay. On to your next point. The build to WrestleMania was dull, and that's what I had a feeling that the dull expectations, or the dull build, created low expectations, but at the same time, the low expectations are easy to exceed. Therefore, our perception is that WrestleMania was better than it actually was perceived to be. I don't think that's by design. I think you want everyone hyped up, but sometimes WrestleMania can get hyped to a point of really just an unachievable level. That wasn't this year, so I agree. Big comebacks to happen at SummerSlam. Yeah, definitely. I'm with you on that, especially if they're going to have fans at SummerSlam, which apparently is the case. Your thought about Cesaro being the version of Kofi during Kofi Mania. Yeah, I would agree with that. He has longevity. Kofi Kingston had longevity. He has respect among fans. Cesaro and Kofi both have that. That is a good analogy. He is the Kofi Mania version of himself, or of Kofi. I would say, though, that Kofi Mania wasn't by design, though. Kofi Mania happened out of nowhere because of an injury to Mustafa Ali in the Elimination Chamber a couple of years ago. Cesaro was by design, and they're trying to perhaps capitalize on that and make it feel organic. And you know what? It does. Cesaro is deserving. Cesaro is certainly deserving. But yeah, I think he will go through several pay-per-views before he finally gets that match that Roman Reigns can no longer avoid. One of the thoughts was he wins the Money in the Bank briefcase. And while Roman is not allowing Cesaro to challenge for the Universal Championship, Cesaro forces him to by using the Money in the Bank briefcase. I think that's probably what's going to happen. He'll give him, hey, SummerSlam, we're meeting, or whatever it may be. Extreme Rules, whatever that pay-per-view is between Money in the Bank and SummerSlam. Two pay-per-views, actually. There's two pay-per-views. I got to get my stuff straight. King of the Ring? Is King of the Ring still happening? I got to look at the pay-per-view schedule. But yes, to your point, Muller, you're correct. It's going to be a chase, a game of cat and mouse. Let's see. SmackDown is absolutely the strongest show. And I think a lot of it has to do not just with the talent, but that it's an hour less than Raw. And when you have to create less content, typically the quality goes up. So Mia Yim coming over to SmackDown and drop the whole... Yeah, Retribution's gone. Dead. Retribution is dead. We can officially say that. Somebody should, create a funeral that we can all attend. And we'll have a GoFundMe for the headstone or something. We can all chip in $5-10, create a headstone for Retribution, and never have to think about them again. Nia Jax is annoying, absolutely. And not in a good way either. Like, I don't know. Nia Jax is... I'm not a fan of her, just in general. I don't mean in a good heel way where I want to see somebody beat her up. Like, I don't even care about that. She's starting to creep into the Miz territory. And it's... Yeah, I'm with you. Lana is... Bless her heart. She is trying. I'm sure she hears the criticism. And she is putting in an effort. It's just sometimes it's just not there. And, you have to know when to move on and cut your losses. She could perhaps be at that level, or maybe she's just going to continue on. I will, I'm not going to sit here and crap on Lana because I'm sure she is putting in the effort, assuming she is. If she's not, then shame on her. But if she is, I'm trying to give her a fair shot. She is a step to 2 to 3 to 4 behind the talent that are at the top. And she has a lot of work to do if she's going to continue to try to be at that level. I don't think it's impossible. I just think there's a ton of work in front of her. We'll have to see. But as it stands, yeah, she's not great compared to the talent of today. Now, if you threw Lana in during the Trish and Lita era, like during the Divas Championship era, she'd fit right in, right? Like, it's all because of the talent pool that WWE has now, that we're comparing her to the talent that are just so great. You look at Lana and you're like, right? But if Lana was in the Attitude Era, or if she was in the Ruthless Aggression era, and as the Divas champion, people wouldn't have, questioned it. They would have been like, yeah, she's at least a wrestler, right? She's not just over-sexualized. So, yeah, it's all perspective. Nia Jax and Shayna, yes, please split them up. Totally agree. 100%. And Lana as manager, sure. Lana is a great manager. She was great for Rusev, so. You also say that you have a comment on what Ashley said that has been said before. NXT superstars coming up to the main roster have been unsuccessful, but on the Raw side, look at Bianca. Different story. And unfortunately, most send-ups to the main roster are to Raw. Yeah, agreed. And also, I like what you said in the weekend review, adding Nia and Baszler's story. They were both in storylines with SmackDown, with both SmackDown and Raw Women's Champions. If there's a draft, I hope they split and each challenge the brand's champion that they're on, seeing that they will have wins over those champions. I get what you're saying. So I understand. Yeah, I just want Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax to just get the hell away from one another. But no doubt about it. And I think your final point, let's see. And can we also just realize The weird attack by Baron. Not going to call him king. Where is he now? No WrestleMania, no Raw, no SmackDown. Seeing superstars who shouldn't be released. Is he next? I don't think he's next. I don't think they know what the F to do with him. Because he is the most just washed up heel that they have right now. I think Baron Corbin is good on the mic. He's good in the ring. Notice I'm not saying great. He's good. He's just good. He has the potential to be really good. The problem is the King gimmick died a long time ago. And no one ever told Baron Corbin, right? Like, he still thinks that it's a heel generating gimmick. It's not. I hope he takes some time. I hope WWE takes some time to really think about when he comes back to maybe repackage him a little, tweak him a little. I'm not saying give him a completely new character, but Baron Corbin needs time away, and and WWE Creative needs to really think about what they can do with him upon his return, because the Corbin King gimmick never really truly caught on. He was caught in a lot of, ongoing 6-month programs like with Roman Reigns and the dog food. Remember that? Yeah. So, he's not going to be released. I'll say that. I just don't think they know what the F to do with him right now. And hopefully when they do, it's not rushed. And they are strategically looking at what to do with him. Thoughtful, critical thinking, right? So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Muller, and we look forward to hearing from you next week if you want to contribute. Let's see if there's anybody else that wanted to contribute. I see a lot of feedback from my patrons who are asking about things that I can do to make my page better, so I'll take that into consideration, absolutely. But as far as the mailbag goes, that's it from Patreon. Let's jump over to the regular email box here, which, by the way, you can contribute if you want to get on the show at realwwepodcast@gmail.com. So, pretty easy. Okay, Dennis O'Brien writes and says, well done on the amount of content you and the guys and gals have put together over WrestleMania week and the week after. WrestleMania Backlash, yeah, thanks so much. WrestleMania, you're banned from the show, Dennis. No, I'm kidding. We'll address it as WrestleMania Backlash. I guess the more I say it, the more I'm just kind of being softened up to it, whatever. So expect plenty of rematches, yes. I think the draft will include 3 brands going forward because nobody debuted on Raw. I haven't watched SmackDown yet, but I think that is what will happen. Possibly. At the same time, I think WWE likes to and should look at the call-ups from NXT as special. While I understand what you're saying, I also like the unpredictability of anybody could come up with it from NXT at any time, rather than just a lump sum of them being brought up from NXT. The argument against that, as I argue with myself on air here, is, but it would immediately change the feeling of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. It would immediately change it, not just in increments and little drips and drabs of somebody coming up here and there, and 6 months goes by and nobody comes up. It would immediately change the face and feel of both shows. So there's also that argument to be made. It's not an easy thing to decide, because then what are you going to do about NXT? You can't drain the farm system, which is essentially what it's viewed as now. I don't want to hear that it's a legitimate third brand from Vince, because I don't believe he believes it. I want to believe it. I thought I believed it, and then they just take them out of Survivor Series. They're not really involved in the Rumble and so forth. So I don't want the whole system to be uprooted and then brought to Raw and SmackDown, then have the leftovers on NXT with a couple of Raw and SmackDown people over there, because then I think it would I think it would deplete what makes NXT special, is that it feels separate from the main Raw and SmackDown shows. It's like its own world, and if you poison that world, so to speak, okay, I'm not saying anybody that would come over would poison it, but the feeling of that show would be poisoned if you brought over Raw and SmackDown talent, I think. Now, Finn Balor is an exception. He has excelled very well over there, and I think other guys could. Kevin Owens has been very vocal about wanting to go. But, boy, that's a whole conversation you could just make a show out of. Thanks, Dennis. You do have a second one here, though. You say, why release Samoa Joe, the Iconics? Is it because creative had nothing for them? I get Joe is injured, but he has killed it on commentary. The Fiend character is doomed. I say release the creative writers they've come across as useless. But at the same time, Vince is being rumored to be changing the scripts an hour or so before Raw starts, which is maybe why the writers come across as complete crap. Oh man, boy, you bring up some points, Dennis, that I could go off on 45-minute tangents on, because these are such deep diving concepts and topics, I should say. But the Samoa Joe release, to kind of paraphrase what I said, I think it was due to they didn't believe that he'd ever be cleared for injury. He had multiple concussions, that he doesn't have, he's not exactly a spring chicken. He's on the older side, doesn't have a lot of mileage left on his body, and that he wasn't overwhelmingly great on commentary, and they didn't find any use for him. I think that's what it is. The Fiend character is in big trouble. Yes, the Fiend character is in danger. It's in dangerous territory, and it's really crazy, right? Because the Fiend went from returning with the burn skin Fiend that everybody was losing their minds over in a good way, and I was too. I was saying that was awesome. It was the best costume I've ever seen for a wrestler, bar none. And they went from that to the WrestleMania fall off a cliff result. The burn skin is gone because it probably wasn't durable during a match and probably would have fallen off. So I understand that if that's the case. But yeah, the Fiend character is in big trouble right now. I really don't even know where to go with it, because he loses with a single RKO, yet lighting him on fire doesn't stop him. Several shots with a sledgehammer with Seth Rollins didn't stop him. 18 curb stomps didn't stop. But all of a sudden, a single RKO does the job, guys. What? The creative writers. Here's what I think about the creative in WWE as far as how the environment there. And I have said this before, but I want to be very clear. I believe that the writers write for Vince, that they don't write for what they know in their heart may be the best storyline, that they write for Vince in fear of their jobs. I think there's a lot of truth in that. So we can blame creative, and at times we should. But we also have to add that layer to that conversation of, are they really writing for the best story possible? Or is the environment so toxic in WWE that the writers fear for their jobs if they don't write what they think Vince would like, rather than prioritizing what the fans would like, because they are not always the same? So that is something to really think about. And I've heard stories and confirmed news websites, credible ones, that a lot of times the script for Raw is, rewritten and torn up just hours or minutes before the show. Agreed. Yeah. So thank you, Dennis, for your email. Let's keep things going here. And the next email is from Terry, who seems to be now a regular here on the WWE Podcast Mailbag from Springfield, Tennessee. And he says, is it me, but does Raw seem flat since Mania? With the Fiend and Orton feud over, nothing is really compelling. I'm already tired of the Lashley and McIntyre storyline. I understand that they have to make it to Backlash. Thank you for saying Backlash, Terry. You get a gold star. I appreciate just saying Backlash. You're the emailer of the day. But I wouldn't mind if they threw someone else in the mix just to make it more interesting. But MVP is the MVP of Raw at the moment. And I like what they're doing to Retribution now. They seem more relevant than they have been and would be a good fit to the Hurt Business. You said you still hate the treatment of Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. And did you catch another wardrobe malfunction by Charlotte this week? If only Jerry the King Lawler was commentating. Oh, yeah. I mean, well, not only if he was commentating, but if it was the Attitude Era and he's commentating. I mean, how many times will we have heard the word puppies, right? There's no question. The word puppies would have been plentiful in that. First of all, no, I did not catch the wardrobe malfunction by Charlotte. I did not. Perhaps it was edited off the Hulu version, which I exclusively watch. But now you're making me want to Google it. So I'm scared what I'm going to find, right? Like I could fall off a slippery slope of that looking for, wardrobe malfunctions of Charlotte, depending on what you're talking about, of course. But no, I didn't catch it. The treatment of Shelton and Alexander, yeah, I mentioned that on my Raw review. They've gone from being prominently positioned in the Hurt Business to kicked out of the Hurt Business to working with the Viking Raiders 2 weeks in a row and losing to the Viking Raiders this past week. I mean, does it get any lower for them right now? They are not even on Hulu, by the way. I have to dig their match out and watch it. So, yeah, I don't know what the deal is, why they did this, to what replace them with two has-beens of Retribution. It's maddening. You know, you always try to give, I always try at least, to give WWE the benefit of the doubt. When they do a breakup that made no sense, like the Iconics, which is ironically an iconic example of their mismanagement of tag teams, and one of the worst creative decisions that I think they've made in 2020. But yeah, I always try to believe in the best. Like, they have the best intentions, or they have a master plan that we're all going to go at the end and say, oh, that's why they broke them up. Makes total sense. Cool. I get it. I agree. I want to believe that they think we're going to have that reaction, or at least the intent is, when they break teams up or move them out of prominent groups into irrelevancy in the tag team division, that they have a master plan. I can say with confidence, they have no master plan for Shelton and Cedric. None. Zero. They wanted them out of the way. To me, they have now just relegated them to, quote, just another tag team. And I'm really just disappointed in WWE for what they've done with Shelton and Cedric, who were fitting in very well with the Hurt Business. It just makes no sense. But so your last point about MVP being the MVP. Well, the MVP is the MVP of Raw. Yes, he's exactly what his name says. And with Fiend Norton over, although I would say this, that went on for 4 months? I was kind of ready to get to the match. And we get to the match, and then I was, as many of us were, like, what the hell just happened? and just angry at that match. But your wish that they would throw somebody else in the McIntyre-Lashley storyline. I agree. You know, I think Randy Orton or Braun Strowman could easily be thrown in there. I think there's a case to be made. But I also understand that, as they labeled it, WrestleMania Backlash, you're going to have a lot of just WrestleMania rematches. So once we get past this pay-per-view, things will open up for new programs. So this is kind of like the leftovers. Thank you, Terry. Good points, and I'm sure we'll be in touch next week. All right, and here's our final email from our listeners for the week, and then we'll get to voicemails. This is G-Man. He says, "Hey, Matt, it's the G-Man from Reading, Pennsylvania. The G-Man has come back on the WWE Podcast Mailbox. First of all, the G-Man is I love the third-person references here. The G-Man is very upset from the releases of the Iconics. Yeah, I mean, I just went through that. And I've ranted on that for like a week now. It's just ridiculous. I mean, but anyway, they'll regret that. They are such an entertaining team, especially Billie Kay, who was doing awesome on SmackDown. Yes, she was. She was actually taking a nothing gimmick and making it into something. Agreed. The resume thing was, I loved it. I said that she was the highlight of the week, every week for several weeks. They could have brought them together again some way, but Vince just gave up on them. Yeah, I don't know why. You're so mad about that. Me too. I mean, you're getting me all angry. I mean, I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming WWE. It makes me so disappointed as a fan, angry, frustrated as a fan. I'm sure they are just as confused as we are. Charlotte attacking the referee was great. Was hoping she would have done the figure 4 on him. Yeah, I agree. That would have been funny. Or the figure 8 in her case. She was fined $100,000, suspended indefinitely. That's great. I mean, again, I don't know how she's a quote, a heel. Like, attacking a referee, people feel neutral about referees. They don't feel one way or the other. I think referees are just kind of invisible, which I disagree. I think they should be more visible, more involved in the match, not creating a bias or not interfering in the outcome, but more interactive. They're such an invisible figure in the ring, aren't they? You don't even look at them most of the time. And but my point is, I don't know how that she is a heel figure attacking a referee, just being a legit badass, right? Like, just going all out and attacking everybody. Yeah, she lost the match, but it was frustration. This is the Charlotte Flair I want. This is an awesome Charlotte Flair. I got to say, I don't care if she's a heel. Like, she's so good right now. This is awesome. I kept screaming at the TV, "Do the figure 4, Charlotte." You actually cool. No, that's great that wrestling can do that to you. That's great. Seriously. So you go on to say, so ladies, if you want to beat Shayna Baszler easy, all you got to do is roll her up. She now, since the new year, has been rolled up 9 times. 9 times. Okay, I now you're getting me riled up. If that's true, first of all, did you keep count, or where did you find this stat? I believe you. I'm not questioning your statistic here, but 9 times. Holy you know what? That's ridiculous. You go on to say that's embarrassing, especially how brutal Shayna was in NXT. Lastly, where are AJ and Omos? My theory, I'm assuming one of them got COVID. I'm sure Vince would have something for them. They literally just won the titles, and the last 2 Raws, they weren't there. Really hoping they'll be there this Monday. Take care, Matt, and the rest of the co-hosts, and everyone else in the mailbox. Thank you, G-Man from Reading, Pennsylvania. I would assume they got COVID too. I would hope. I mean, I don't hope that, wish an illness on them, but at least that would make it understandable that they're not there. But I have my doubts. Vince, and I'll say this again, is never, ever, as long as he's running the company, going to make the tag team division a priority. Ever. So if the Raw tag team champions, even though they're champions, are off Raw a couple weeks, Vince isn't going to bat an eye. It's not a priority for him. I'm sure that it was brought up to him, and he said, well, we got other stuff to put in there, pal. We don't have time for the tag teams. This is a 3-hour show, right? It's a 3-hour show. You don't have time. It's nonsense. Now, maybe they don't have opponents lined up. I don't know. But yeah, they just won them at WrestleMania, and they've got nothing to do on Raw for 2 weeks. It's ridiculous. Man, you're throwing a lot of bombs in here, G-Man, right? Like 9 times Shayna Baszler gets rolled up. AJ and Omos are absent after they win the titles for 2 weeks. Yeah, boy, oh boy. And the Iconics being released. Now I'm all fired up. I want to go on a rant, but I'm gonna pause and let you guys talk. That's what this is for. So let's hear from the listeners. Let's hear from you, the ones that take your time out of your day when there are lots of other podcasts that you listen to, other things that are vying for your attention. Let's get to hear what you guys think about what's going on in the WWE right now. So let's get that started right now.
Hello, Matt. This is Sharon from Israel. And today I want to give the WWE Oscar for the worst acting ever. Drum roll, please. The WWE Referees. Yeah, that's right. After what we see they did with Charlotte, now they didn't protect the poor referee after Charlotte kicked his ass. So yeah, it was so weird. I mean, I understand that the purpose of this scene that Charlotte will beat the hell out of the referee, but when the other referees come, they just didn't do anything to protect him. I mean, every time that she came back in order to start hitting him again, they just gave her to do it. I mean, they didn't even stand in front of her, like, take her hand. I mean, it is not about women and violence against women. If someone attacks another man, you can simply grab his hand or, like, put your hands on his body, and that's it. You don't need to be, that's like of, anyway, you don't need to do violence against women. So I really don't understand the WWE sometimes. Yeah. And it was really weird. And it was also weird that, I mean, every time that she came back to do it, the poor referee did nothing. And the only thing that she did was kicking him and give him beats on his head. I mean, it was nothing. So anyway, I think that the WWE, they should have, 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 they sho I just wanted to say that I really think that this scene was weird, and the power referees of the WWE don't know how to act, and they get to a situation that a woman kicked their ass. Yeah, I don't want to be a referee in the WWE this time. Okay, yeah, so see you later, Matt. Bye.
Hey, Sharon. Quite a long little rant you got there about Charlotte and attacking the referees. I didn't really think about it like that per se. I've given up on the thought that even in this fantasy environment that, isn't real, the men can never retaliate against the women. Nearly ever. Nearly. Unless their name's Randy Orton, in which case you can RKO whoever you'd like. But I understand the violence against women, right? Like, they're a public company. They'd have to deal with a lot of PR, even though it's a fantasy environment. You're in a very tumultuous political environment right now. There's no company safe. I get it. But to your point about the referees not protecting their own, yeah, they could have just pulled him out of the ring, right? Like, get him out of harm's way, right? They could have done something to protect him. I mean, if I was that person getting beat up by Charlotte Flair, and there was like 5 of the referees that didn't have the balls to just pull me out of the ring and get me out of harm's way, yeah, I'd be kind of like, hey, dude, what's going on? Why don't you help me out? But again, the general point and the purpose of that was to have Charlotte Flair just go and beat the holy hell out of a referee, sending the message that she means business and that she doesn't care what she does, that she is just aggressive, right? The aggressiveness of Charlotte Flair is, I think, the ultimate goal, the ultimate message that they're trying to send, because they're all about sending messages and statements, as we know. So, yeah, I get it. I mean, there are ways to retaliate against Charlotte without actually physically retaliating against her. And she got fined and all that kind of stuff, and she's suspended indefinitely, which we all know what suspended indefinitely means. It means until the next pay-per-view event. Right? Like, let's be honest. She's probably going to interfere in the WrestleMania Backlash match, or somehow weasel her way into that match being a triple threat. Like, we all know what that really means. So, thank you, Sharon. Let's keep going.
Hey, it's Kyle from Baltimore, Maryland. I'm making this call before Raw tomorrow. It's about Sunday, so it's about what happened last week with Rhea, Charlotte, Asuka. First, will lead to a triple threat match for the championship, which I guess is fine. But I look at this Raw and thinking, do they need more women on this show? And now it looks like Alexa's going to be hopefully a part of the women's division now, being away from Bray Wyatt. I'll like to see that. But some people don't want her being in the title picture because they think the character shouldn't be with holding the championship, which I don't get. But I think that's really odd. She's the best part of Monday Night Raw. So I don't know, I thought that was weird. But I still want Alexa in the women's division. And so what do you think about all that? Having people think that she shouldn't be the champion, Alexa Bliss. I think that's bizarre. It's kind of stupid because she's the best thing, I guess, on Raw. But that was it. Thanks for the call. Bye.
Kyle, thanks for calling in. Alexa not being champion to me doesn't make sense. So far, I'm a little bit underwhelmed with Rhea Ripley as champion. That said, I'm also not sad, though, that Asuka is no longer champion, given, not that she's not a great talent, but given what she represented for 6+ months of not defending the championship, being hidden away, tucked away in hibernation, whatever the reason is a bad reason for what they did to the Raw Women's Championship. But so far, Rhea Ripley has been very subdued, hasn't done a whole lot. She had a few little words for Charlotte this week that weren't very good. I mean, she's great in the ring. I love her look. But right now, it just doesn't feel like it's it doesn't feel like it's a big deal that she's champion. And it should. It doesn't. So Alexa Bliss, though, I think, number one, she's a babyface. I don't think you can boo Alexa Bliss right now. She's just so cool, right? She's the cool heel, which by definition, if you're a cool heel, you're a baby. You're a babyface. So that said, Alexa Bliss as champion needs to happen. Alexa Bliss has not been in the title picture for the women. I mean, over a year or more, right? I mean, she challenged. Okay, somebody's going to say, well, she challenged Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship before WrestleMania. Like, oh, there's like a couple months before WrestleMania. And yeah, but it wasn't an a means to an end for Alexa. That was a means to an end for Randy Orton and The Fiend. So, yeah, she had her little quick spat with Alexa or with Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship, and I get that, but she hasn't had her own story in a long time. She's more than overdue for that championship. I think she'll capture it perhaps at SummerSlam or sooner. I think a lot of people want to see Ripley with the belt for a while. Again, given the sample size of 2 weeks, it's not a whole lot of time to decide whether or not she's good as champion. But I think that that Alexa Bliss as champion makes 100% sense. I think it would reinvigorate the Raw Women's Championship in a way that it needs it badly. And I think she'd be great. Alexa Bliss has been a shining star, as you said, of Monday Night Raw. So, Kyle from Baltimore, Maryland, thank you so much. And guys, if you want to call in, by the way, and leave us a voicemail, join the fun. 518-952-0247. That's 518-952-0247. Call us, leave a voicemail, and we'll get it on the show. All right. I really feel like the wrestling gods are screwing with me. Every week this happens. The other Kyle from New York is up next here with his voicemail. I know that you guys think this is by design. I said this last week and the week before. I promise it's not. It's just that both Kyles called. Let's see how far apart they called. You'll have to, of course, take my word for it. They called about an hour apart. Okay? I don't know what it is. They must have the same break time or work. I don't know. But both Kyles, you guys are crazy. I swear you coordinated. But I play these voicemails in order. I guess I could not play them in order, and then you'd never know that they, were back to back. But okay, let's get to Kyle from New York and see what he has to say this week.
Hey, Matt, it's Kyle from New York again. Couldn't really think of much to talk about this week. Because, I don't know, WrestleMania hangover, I guess. So, two things. I have two questions. First one, you already talked about this because I listened to your Raw review this week, but the Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Mandy Rose, Dan Brooks stuff, I really don't like it. It's getting really annoying. Also, I'm not wishing to see you, but don't Mandy Rose and Dana Brooks feel like heels right now? Think of that. They walked out and got themselves a count-out victory. Well, count-out loss, last week. Then this week, the stupid stuff with the pictures of Nia Jax slipping and falling. Wouldn't babyfaces not do that? No matter how much of a bad guy the heel is. I said that in quotes, in parentheses, quotation marks. Bad guy. It doesn't matter how bad you are as a heel. Babyfaces still don't do that. They don't, make fun of you and embarrass you. So, I'm finding Mandy Rose and Dan Brooks very unlikable. I don't know about you. They're very annoying. But Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax is very unlikable. Shayna Baszler, I want her to just go on a singles run already. I want her and Nia to break up. But Shayna Baszler was really good in NXT on her own. And the second question, Miz and Maurice, like you said in your Raw review, John Morrison wasn't there, and you also said, Miz is better alone without Morrison, and I feel the same way with Miz and Morrison. I feel the same way about them, the same way you do. I can't stand them. So, I hope this happens, but I'm going to ask you if you think the same thing. Are you hoping this is a sign that Miz and Morrison are breaking up? I hope so, because they're so annoying together. I want them to be separate, especially Morrison. Morrison's great in the ring. Because Morrison feels like the third wheel here. So, I think it's a sign of a breakup. I feel like Maurice is going to make them break up, and I hope so. Anyway, that's all I can think of this week. So, yeah, talk to you next week. Thanks.
All right, Kyle. Well, these are two interesting points, ones that I haven't really addressed that much. The first is the annoyance of Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose. Yeah, they are not very likable. They're a little bit on the kind of entitlement side or the I don't know how I'm supposed to relate to you side. They don't have a whole lot of, I don't know what it is, the intangible that I'm supposed to get attracted to when I see them. Of course, I'm not talking about their physical appearance. I'm talking about their personalities, their promos, their characters, why I'm supposed to care if they win or lose. I just don't care. And, I felt that way for the most of Dana Brooke's career. Dana Brooke's just been the wallpaper that's there. Kind of like Tamina, except blonde and younger. And I'm not saying that these two obviously should be released or anything, but the way that they're presently constituted, I am not a big fan of how they are presented, that we're supposed to somehow feel, like you said, as they're a babyface team. They're showing clips like immature little schoolgirls of Nia Jax slipping. And Nia Jax gets angry and puts her angry face on and walks up the ramp. I don't know. The women's tag team division, though, is super thin. So I don't think they can really afford to lose too many tag teams to breaking up. But I'm sure they can just create one out of thin air, because that's what they do. They just put two people together and they're like, oh, you're a tag team now. So as far as The Miz and Morrison breaking up, yeah, I could see that, where The Miz would play the heel, Morrison would play the baby. If that's going to happen, that would require a personality change to take place for both men. Both men would have to get more serious if it's going to take place. And I want to see what a serious, angry John Morrison looks like. I've forgotten. I don't remember what a serious, angry John Morrison taking something actually serious looks like. Again, great in the ring. How he's maintained those abs over the last 15 years, I'll never know. So kudos to him. But I'd be all for it. I think it would create a lot of interest. As much as we may say, though, here's what ultimately matters. Vince. Does Vince want to let go of his quote, and I say this very heavily in quotes, comedy team, comedy relief on the show? Does he want to get rid of that? And again, I say comedy extremely loosely when they're together. I don't think he does. So if I was to put money on it, I would think it's not going to happen, at least not anytime soon. But I think it's actually going to be added to with Maurice there. I don't know if ultimately Maurice is the reason for the divide between the two, then sure. But I could also see it where that's not the plan, and Maurice is just there to bolster the team. And that she's there to add to Morrison and Miz. Not ultimately have a frame in mind, a storyline in mind that it's going to ultimately be the undoing. Maurice is going to be the undoing of Miz and Morrison. So I would venture to say, probably not going to happen, but I'd like to see it. Because I want to feel something for them beyond get the hell off my screen. It'd be nice to diversify my feelings for those two. All right, this looks like actually the final voicemail of the night, and I know much shorter mailbag version than normal. Kind of expected with the post-WrestleMania kind of gone now, and we're into just normal time. It's like daylight savings is over. You're just in standard time now. That's kind of what it feels like. So let's get to our final voicemail for the evening.
Hey Matt, it's Brad from Pennsylvania. How's it going? One thing I just wanted to comment on, well, actually two things, the women's division and then the AJ Styles tag team, which was surprisingly missing from Raw. I saw some rumors that they were booking around a little bit of a COVID outbreak, so hopefully, not hopefully, because I wish nobody'd get it, but hopefully that's the only reason that we didn't see AJ, and it's not just bad booking, because the way they had Omos, or Amos, however we're saying his name, at Mania, they booked him like he was an absolute beast. I loved it. It was great. I don't actually know why they had to beat up AJ Styles for 10, 15 minutes beforehand, but however they do it, I thought it was great. And then the other thing I was thinking of is the women's division. We all know Becky's going to come back soon. I was just thinking, the way the divisions are lined up, to me, it looks like she'll probably be going to SmackDown, it would be my guess. I think SmackDown's kind of lacking in the women's division for singles competition. They have some tag teams, but besides for Sasha and Bianca, they really don't have much going in singles right now. And just the other thing that I was kind of thinking of was, do you think they're going to move Drew on from the title picture and kind of maybe aim him and Braun at challenging AJ and the big fella? Because, you know, Drew being a big dude and Braun being an even bigger dude, they might be the only two chances that anyone would have at beating Omos if maybe they could team up on him somehow. I don't know. Just a couple thoughts I had. I haven't really had anything to call and complain about, which is kind of a good thing. I mean, I don't like the way they kind of double booked Bianca Belair. I feel like she'd be a better heel, especially the way they had her use the hair whip to win at WrestleMania. It's not really baby face-ish, but she kind of is. I don't know, with a good story. That's about it, man. Take care, Ray. We'll see you.
Hey, Brad. Feel like it's been a while. So a few things, as you mentioned. Again, AJ and Omos, your point about the fact that they didn't really use them. And yeah, it could have been COVID outbreak. I did address this earlier in the show, though. And if it is, then I think that's a better reason. Again, like you said, not wishing anything on anybody. But from a storyline perspective, that it's better that it's that than because they just don't know what to do with them. So I hope that's the case. The women's division, is Becky going to go to SmackDown when she returns? I hope, well, I think she would be a good fit there, but I don't think WWE views her as a SmackDown star. Furthermore, she was a part of Raw before she left. So unless they're going to do a shakeup where she's drafted to SmackDown, it would make no sense for her to show up on SmackDown and then we're all supposed to just go with it and forget that the draft actually happened. So if they do a draft and she goes there, fine. But I don't want them to just pretend that she was never drafted to Raw, because remember, she gave the championship to Asuka after the Money in the Bank pay-per-view last year, announcing she's pregnant, and Asuka had no idea that the briefcase contained the belt and not the contract. Which, yeah, so that we'll see. We'll see how that all shakes out. I think Becky Lynch coming back is going to be a big deal. Obviously, we don't know when exactly that's going to happen. She looks to be in decent shape from the pictures that she's cryptically putting out there. It could be, I would think she's aiming for SummerSlam time. As I've said, really even last year, before when she had the baby, I said, she's probably not going to come back to WrestleMania SummerSlam. And it looks to be that's on track. Perhaps earlier, but I think SummerSlam is and was the plan all along for her, at least tentatively. I mean, when you're caring for a child, you don't never know how things are going to go. But that was my thought. Your proposal, though, about moving Drew out of the title picture, I think is going to happen. I think Drew is going to move out of the title picture temporarily, and he could form a tag team with Braun and take on Omos and AJ. But I don't think WWE Vince views either Braun or Drew as a tag team together. I don't think they view them as anything other than single stars. Because ultimately that's what a tag team is for in Vince's eyes, is to create single stars. There's usually a means to an end with a singles or a tag team to create single stars where the money is. And to put them in a tag team and sacrifice their singles storylines that they could be doing for a tag team title opportunity, I think Vince would look at it for both men as a demotion. So I don't think that's going to happen. Furthermore, I don't know if you'd want to immediately have AJ and Omos challenge a team like that. Again, they're not even a team yet, but if they were, that's like a top team. You'd like them to build to that. I don't think you'd want to see them go, head to head with those two immediately. That's something you'd build to. I don't hate the idea. I mean, I think post-WrestleMania, like especially the months immediately following WrestleMania, are your time to experiment, do things, because what you do is really inconsequential to next year's WrestleMania or even SummerSlam for that matter. You can just play around. This is your time to do things. There's no fans there. You're after WrestleMania. You've already gotten through the big show. Test things out. Test the waters. This is the exact time to do it. So I'm not against it. I think that'd be an interesting combination. All right. Well, guys, thank you, everybody. Thank you, all the callers, all the voicemails, the emails. If you want to join us on Patreon and get priority placement in our mailbag, do so at patreon.com/WWE podcast. We're going to have exclusive podcasts there now. Every single every single Wrestling Nostalgia show is now only going to be on Patreon. It's no longer going to be, after this week, no longer going to be on our free feed. This week will be the final Wrestling Nostalgia show that's on our free feed, and then it'll move to Patreon, which, again, starting next week, and ad-free and priority placement in the show, and just a lot of benefits for $1 a month. And of course, there's other benefits you can get moving up in tiers, and I'd encourage you to take a look at that as we're adding things left and right in Patreon. So check it out, guys. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Plus, you get direct access to me via the message function in the app. So that's pretty cool too, right? As I sell myself. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you, as always, for listening, and enjoy yourself. I'll talk to you next time.